rejected ballots, I guess, is when, well, I don't guess, I know, it's when someone declines a ballot. It's one of the options you have when you go to the polling station, that you can reject your ballot if you're not satisfied with any of the names or whatever. I'm not sure, one thing I'm not sure about rejected ballots is if it includes spoiled ballots as well, if the ballot is been improperly marked or whatever. And then, of course, we have our vote totals, and then they give you the summary of how many electors belong to each individual poll. So again, for mine, it was on line 206, I believe. Let's go back here to 192. Yeah, so here, if I wanted to know how many electors there were 390 electors allowed to vote at this poll. Anyway, that's what the data amounts to, but what we're really interested in is simply taking the data and copying it into the appropriate place in our spreadsheet. Now at this moment, we of course have two spreadsheets open. We have this comma delimited file, which isn't actually a spreadsheet, it's just a text file. I'm going to copy this, so I can do that by right mouse clicking and saying copy. And then you'll notice that the expected flashing dotted line circumnavigates the rows that we have selected. And then we'll go back to our previous spreadsheet, which I believe I put over here somewhere. Isn't that interesting? I don't know. Here it is. Well, where is it? Ah, here we are. Okay. So that was those were the results for the 39th election. So we put those here. And if you want, sometimes it's a good idea, I like to do this, just to, instead of just going Control-C and wiping out my, if you just put copy and paste right in this cell, you'll overstrike your, you can see here in this row I've got all the totals already set up for us with some references that aren't going to work because there's no data for them yet. We're going to go into that in a moment. So what I do in order to stop myself from overwriting this is to do something called insert copied cells. Right? So now we've taken data from the source spreadsheet and copied it into our election 39 raw tab. And the reason we call election 39 raw is, of course, because last election was the 39th Canadian general election. The one that's being held tomorrow is the 40th general election. Now, you'll notice that there's a bit of a formatting error here. This has something to do with the way that we're pasting into freeze pane. So the first thing that you'll want to do to make this work, so you can scroll around and navigate the data as you will need to, is to go to your View tab in Excel and select the Freeze Panes button on the ribbon. And first say Unfreeze Panes, which will clear the error. And then you will say freeze top row. Okay, and maybe just to make it easier to read, we'll just boldface this data. So what we've done now is boldface the headers for our data set, and I'm just going to make some formatting changes that will make it a little bit easier for us to read this. If you want, we know that our electoral district is, so one of the options that we can do at this point is we can actually hide the cell. And I'm just trying to remember here how exactly one goes and goes about doing that. Oh, here we are. You can just right mouse click on the column and with the column highlighted and say hide, and that will hide the cell. And again, that column we just hid just simply contained the name of the riding, which we already know what name the riding is. So now we've got our polling station number in the far left-hand pane. Now the next thing, So the next step is the one that's sort of going to basically finish us off, because you're just going to repeat the step once it's done, until we've got all of our data. So we have to enter in manually our candidate names, but then we'll be just doing a copy and paste operation from the source data. So here we have Mauril Bélanger, which is we know from our referral to the other data at the Elections Canada website. And we do a copy. And again, there's our flashing dotted line. And we paste his name into, notice here that where it says the election number is 39, there's the date of the election, and we'll just paste his name. But we're going to say paste special, and the reason we do that is because we want to copy text only and make sure that there's no formatting. For some reason, there doesn't seem to be any formatting here, so I believe we can simply paste him as is. So, oh, that's right, we can't do that because otherwise, I'll undo that and do it again. So we do a paste special, and we will paste values only, right? And that way there is no formatting. Now the first line you'll notice for each of these data sets, we're going to do the same thing for 38 and 37. I also, as you'll see soon from the example that we'll skip to at the end, that I like to put in an X to indicate that that was the incumbent. So now we'll repeat the process for our Conservative candidate, which was Paul Benoit. And again, we'll use special values. And Rick Dagnay. And the Green Party candidate, I believe, was Raphael Therrien. So we have our names now for our first block of data. Now the next step is to go get our totals, and you'll see here that there's a reference already in place. If you're familiar with Excel formulas, you'll recognize this right away, that we have the election 39 raw, which corresponds to our tab here, bang, which is the exclamation point. You'll sometimes hear people like me refer to this as a bang character, just for simplicity and brevity. And then it's D256, which is the cell number inside the data set. Now, if we go down here to line 256, we'll see indeed that we do have a line here, but that we've got this ref. Now, these exception markers, number sign ref bang, simply means that we've got a bad reference or an exception of some sort. And here we can see the error is calling an invalid cell reference. There's no way to copy data reliably, like the formatting of the data from the various .csv files or the comma delimited files that we're downloading from Elections Canada, of course, is changing. Some ridings have more candidates than others, so the number of columns is always different. Because you can see here they're putting one candidate per column. So a riding that only had 3 competitors, I mean this one has 7 I think for this election. So if it only had 3, well we chop off 3 of these columns, and of course the references that would be on this in the template for this particular page would be completely wrong for that set of results. So you'll have this is why you have to replace the formulas in the cell for each one, but it's still a heck of a lot easier than, of course, typing it all in or trying to do the analysis some other way manually. In any event, so what we're going to do is just do that now. We know